Do you like elevator music? But you don't think about it. Good evening, sir. Good evening. Which floor, sir? Oh, 10th. You got it. Here we are, sir, 10th. Thank you. You're welcome. It's funny how there's different musics for different places. Another one is sort of supermarket music. It's a bit sort of more upbeat, so you buy more fruit and veg and meat and stuff. And you have something like this. It's you know, usually well-known tunes, and you sort of ignore it a bit, but it's a bit more, you know, get you going a bit. There's a third type of music which I try and avoid, but if I was dragged into a boutique by one of my daughters, I might get this music where I can't even think straight. On deux fois que petit va le petit père, fille va, tu vas, fille jamais de petit de la you know, the sort of thing. God. Well, we were looking for another car because we got a Prius, but I got a bit bored with that. And the reason we had to have it because living in London, central London, because they got the ULEZ charge, they got the TfL charge, they charge you according to the size of your engine and emissions when you're parked outside the house. It was ridiculous, really, and we just thought, and it was a company car, and we just thought, well, you know, we're doing it, so we had to have the Prius, and it was okay in some ways, but it's also dull. And I said, you know, is it possible to get something that with a bit more zip to it? And as Clive, who watches this show and makes comments, and thanks you for that, he came up with, you know, is it possible to combine functionality with enjoyment? And I thought, well, there is a car that's just come out. What about this one? It's the Golf GTE. How about that? There she is. The Golf GTE. Raw power with a small appetite. What's not to like there? You see? Sporty and sort of green at the same time. What sort of music would that have? Well, it would have probably a bit like the supermarket music, but a bit sort of zipped up a bit. I don't know. But we'd only had it a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, and we were driving along, and this is what happened. It just stopped for no reason in the middle of Pentonville Road in the rush hour, with people shouting, peloton of bicyclists in London who were very aggressive. They were shouting, banged on the bonnet, and guy behind in the van saying, what the fuck are you doing? Just stop. And anyway, we couldn't get it started. We eventually did get it started with a push. Then people helped the push. We got it going. And anyway, the next day we took it to the back to the dealership where we bought it. And they said, oh, it may just be the sensors and things like that. Well, it couldn't have just been the sort of sensors, because it stopped again in the middle of nowhere about 2 or 3 days later. And then when I took it to fill it up, because it still took petrol in, or it's electric, you plugged it in, after paying, you came back to the pump with a big line of people behind you, and it wouldn't start then. You can imagine the embarrassment there. Anyway, we got so fed up of it, we took it back in and said, we want this sorted out. And they lent us a little up, or whatever it's called, VW car, to run around it while they sort of sorted it out. And they said, oh, it's just a, you know, it's an unusual electronic malfunction. That's what it was called. Well, this unusual electronic malfunction occurred 2 or 3 times, and eventually they had to send the car to Wolfsburg. They said it's very strange. And I said, I'm fed up with this. Is there a similar sort of car without these electronic bullshit on it? And he said, oh, it's not like that. So it's a, you know, this is a sort of cutting edge, da da da. I said, what about that one over there, that GTI? That's it. So anyway, we got the GTI instead. And so we drove that thing, and that really was, you know, really a zippy car. And we drove that down to Italy, very nice, to a place there. And then we drove back a fortnight later, 8 weeks, 8 days, whatever it was. And we got through Switzerland, went through there, and then when we got into Germany, there was the Autobahn ahead. And I said, you know, this is a VW Golf GTI. Let's see what she will do. And so instead of that, it was this. I thought, here we go. We're in Switzerland now, out of Switzerland, into Germany, and the light flashing behind us warned. Polizei. Into the lay-by. Big BMW M5. Police step out, walk over to me, and say, you are exceeding the speed limit. Perfect English, he spoke. You are exceeding the speed limit. I said, oh, yes. I thought Autobahn was, no, not this section. You have 30 kilometres on, you go, so, not here, 120 here. You were doing what, 190, 200? No, it's fine, I'm sorry. I said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. How much? It's €100 in cash, if you have it. I said, yes, all right. So he gave me a receipt. I had the €100 cash. You are lucky not to be in Schweiz. This is Switzerland. Switzerland, €600 there. Or in Frankreich, France, €600 there. We are cheap, you see. We are cheap. It's a good car, a German car. Yes. Anyway, we as he walked back, he looked at the back of the car. And I'd written on it, because it's 2016, Brexit non, because it got English plates, so it's embarrassing driving back, you know. And he turned and he said, can I ask you something? I said, why? Yeah, sure. Okay, why Brexit? I said, I don't know. I didn't vote for it. Ciao, Wiedersehen. Why did VW turn up with this GTE? It was taken to market too quickly. A big international company, a flagship German company, to do that. You know, why did they bring it to market without it being properly tested and things? Because we were, you know, one of the first to buy one. And of course the reason was Dieselgate. They were trying to sort of cover themselves in glory after being caught with a hand in the till. And I think that's what it is. And we were sort of straight off the blocks and didn't think about that in buying this car. And that's why we had to change it for the GTI. But anyway, it was on our way back, driving along, much slower this time. turned to Polly and I said, maybe we should get a different car. She nodded. What about a Lexus? Yes.